Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into a heavy one, the case of Ted Bundy.
It's definitely heavy. We're working from material from Shadows of the Past, Ted Bundy's Twisted Truth, that true crime podcast.
Right. And our goal here, our mission, if you like, is to kind of cut through this story and pull out the really key information about Bundy. You know, his methods, the impact, and, well, why we're all still so disturbingly fascinated by him.
Yeah, and the big question that just hangs over everything is how? How could someone who seemed so, well, normal.
So charming.
Exactly. How could that person commit such terrible violence? The source really highlights how he just exploited basic human trust. It's terrifying, really.
Okay, let's get into it. The source starts with his background, which on the surface seems pretty ordinary. Born in Vermont, 1946.
But not quite ordinary. There was that whole hidden family history thing, raised by grandparents thinking his mother was his sister.
Yeah, that's right. And his biological father, unknown. The podcast sort of hints that maybe this early instability, this secrecy, maybe it contributed to his later issues, his need for control.
Well, it's definitely something experts look at, attachment theory, the effects of family secrets.
Yeah.
It's complex. You can't draw a straight line like A caused B.
No, sure.
But it could have played a part in, his psychological makeup.
Yeah.
Developing these really maladaptive ways of coping, perhaps. It adds a layer, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And then there's this stark contrast the podcast highlights, his outward image.
Oh, yeah.
Charismatic, handsome, articulate. A law student, even.
The kind of person who just instantly puts you at ease, gains your trust.
And it's just sickening, really, when you think about how he weaponized that normalcy.
It really makes you think about the halo effect,
Yeah.
that cognitive bias. Because he looked good, sounded smart.
Yeah.
People just assumed he was good. Harmless.
He played on that perfectly.
Yeah, masterfully, yeah.
So the podcast then moves into the disappearances, starting around 74, 75 Pacific Northwest.
And what's creepy there is the lack of typical clues. No obvious struggle, very little evidence left behind initially.
Right. And they mentioned Linda Mae Healy, college student, Seattle, January 74, the first confirmed victim in that wave.
And you start seeing a pattern emerge. It wasn't random. The lack of evidence suggests someone meticulous, calculating, learning how to avoid getting caught.
And his method, it's chillingly simple, isn't it? As the source describes it.
Deceptively simple.
Pretending to be injured, needing help, a cast on his arm, struggling with books.
Yeah, playing on that basic human decency, that impulse to help someone who seems vulnerable.
It's awful. Turning empathy against someone.
Exactly. It wasn't about overpowering them at first. It was psychological manipulation, getting them to lower their guard, willingly put themselves in danger.
But eventually things started to unravel. The podcast points to that traffic stop in 1975. Officer Bob Hayward.
Right, a routine stop. But Hayward noticed something off. Suspicious.
And the search of the car. Wow. Ski masks, handcuffs, a crowbar.
Pretty much a kidnapper's kit, right there, in plain sight.
It's kind of amazing. It shows how important just sharp police work can be.
Definitely. And maybe a bit of arrogance from Bundy. Thinking he was too smart to get caught like that, even the clever ones slip up.
But even getting arrested wasn't the end. Not even close. The escapes.
Unbelievable, almost. First Utah in 77, then Colorado in 78.
And he didn't just lay low. He kept killing during those periods.
Which tells you a lot. It points maybe to some security issues back then, sure, but also Bundy's own audacity, his resourcefulness.
And the compulsion.
Exactly, the compulsion. He just went right back to it. No remorse, just that relentless drive to harm. It really highlights the depth of his psychopathy.
Okay, so then we get to the trial, the courtroom spectacle, as the podcast calls it.
Oh, yeah.
Representing himself.
Turning it into a performance.
Totally. He was cool, composed, seemed intelligent. And it worked, to a degree. It created this weird, unsettling public perception. Maybe he wasn't this monster. He was manipulating the whole system. The media, the public.
On a grand scale, yeah. Trying to control the narrative, sow doubt, even with all the evidence piling up.
It really shows how powerful charisma can be, doesn't it? Even in the face of these horrific facts.
It's disturbing.
And then you peel back that layer of charm and the reality. He confessed, eventually.
To 30 murders.
30. But the podcast notes, everyone suspects the real number is much, much higher.
Right. And even that confession, you could see it as another calculated move, controlling the information flow, revealing only what he wanted to, the true number. We'll probably never know, but it suggests his reign of terror was far wider, far longer.
Then the final chapter, really. Florida, 1978.
The Chi Omega sorority house attack at Florida State University. Just brutal.
That led to his final capture, and then leading up to his execution in 89, those confessions.
Chilling stuff. He apparently talked about the enjoyment he got from it, the terror he inflicted.
Calling it a game. Control. Conquest.
It's a horrifying glimpse into that mindset, isn't it? The total lack of empathy, the pleasure in suffering, the obsession with power. It's the complete opposite of that charming mask he wore for so long.
Which brings us back to the why. I mean, the podcast mentions his admissions about the thrill of the hunt, the kill, the power. But the deeper questions, they just stick with you.
Absolutely. How did he fool so many people for so long? What was it in him, or maybe even in us, in society, that let it happen?
Yeah.
Those are the questions that keep this case relevant, that keep us talking about it. It forces you to face this really uncomfortable truth.
What's that?
That evil doesn't always wear a scary mask. Sometimes it wears a smile. It can hide behind charm, normalcy, which makes it so much more dangerous, so much harder to spot.
And the podcast really ends on that note, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Bundy as this stark reminder. Appearances are deceiving. Horribly deceiving sometimes.
Profoundly deceiving. And that really dark stuff can be looking right beneath the most ordinary seeming surface.
It's a true cautionary tale. Don't just judge by the surface, by the charm. Look deeper.
Critically important, yeah.
So wrapping up this deep dive, Bundy's case, it really is just a chilling study in deception and the kind of darkness that can hide in plain sight.
It makes you think about things we'd maybe rather not. About human nature, how vulnerable we are to manipulation.
So here's something to mull over for you listening. Think about Bundy's skill at manipulation, sure, but also the environment back then. The societal factors that maybe unintentionally let him get away with it for so long. What does that whole picture tell us about how we perceive trust and the potential for evil to be right there, hidden among us?
It's a heavy question. It really pushes us to be more critical, maybe, more aware, not just of obvious dangers, but of the kind of darkness that can be disguised as something completely normal.
Yeah. Well, if this deep dive got you thinking and you want to explore more, maybe look into psychological profiles of offenders like Bundy, or even the history of criminal investigation, how things have changed.
It's a complex field, definitely unsettling, but understanding more about these cases, it can give you a broader perspective, perhaps.